Happy Friday, everybody. It is Friday, March 29th. I am recording this at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, much later for me usually than I normally record these videos, but it has been a really busy few days. So I'm finally getting to sit down and put a few stitches in and record this Stitch With Me video. And the eagle-eyed amongst you may have already noticed that I am not working on either tiramisu or my counted canvas piece from Nancy's Needle or my Mill Hill bead kit. I felt like stitching a house today. I just felt like I wanted to stitch a house. And because I finished my Quaker motif pincushion design, I thought, well, let's replace that with another small design that needs finishing. And let's face it, I mean, this is the Little House Needleworks ABC sampler house design, and there are 9 of them. So I'm stitching the F, G, and H house, and you know, they're small. There's usually a little more stitching in there than you think there is, but they're still pretty small designs. So this is going in place of my other small that I finished. Because, you know, this has been on my scroll rods for far too long now, and it's time to finish it up. So, and I just really felt like stitching a house. Sometimes you get into those moods and, well, it's either stitch a house or start something new. And heaven knows I need to finish up some projects. So a house it was. I thought this one fit the bill. And so this will be my next small piece that I add into my rotation, and I will work on it until it's done. It'll be a mini finish, since obviously I'm stitching all 9 of these designs on one piece of fabric. So I am using the called for threads in this design. The thread this house is Classic Colorworks honeycomb. So this is the thread that I'll be using for the house. My thread looks pretty close to the color of the picture. So we'll see. We'll see how we go. I haven't worked on this since last May. I did a series of videos last May in place of Stitch Mania, and starting 18 new projects last year, I decided to do a version of that, and I called it Whip Mania. And instead I pulled out a different whip every day and put a few stitches in it, and I recorded a video every single day in May and kind of had a lot of fun with that. So will I do that again this year? I don't know. Would not really get me towards my goal of seeing major progress in my pieces. So we'll see. I believe this is a 36 count. Pretty sure this is a 36 count 2/2 that I'm doing. It feels a little snug for 32 count. 36 count is that odd, it's not an odd fabric, it's a beautiful fabric, but it's that fabric where it's hard to decide, should I use 2 strands or should I use 1? And I tend to like a really plump, full coverage on my stitching. So when I stitch 36 count, and I don't use it a lot, but I do usually use 2 strands of thread. So it usually is just a teeny bit more full than I would probably like, but the end result I'm happy with. So I should make sure that I've got how many stitches I'm doing across here. It should be 9. So if I just quickly count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Good. We're in the right spot. Good to go. Okay. So I think I've told you, yeah, it's what linen is it? I don't know. The mystery linen. It's a 36 count something. I have no idea what it is. It came from Kathy and Neil's store years ago. When I bought these when they first came out. So let's see, the date on the pattern is 2016. So yeah, 2016. So I've had these since then and bought the fabric then, and I wasn't recording floss tube videos back then, so I didn't keep track of any of that information. So I'm confident it's a 36 count. And I am stitching all of the 9 houses on one piece of fabric, and I'm leaving 3, let me double check that. 1, 2, 3, yep. 3 squares, 2 over 2, over 2 in between each design. I love stitching houses. Love stitching houses. Little House makes wonderful houses, as does her daughter, Country Cottage Needleworks. I always get her name wrong. You all know her designs. You know what I'm talking about. And Plum Street Samplers also has some fantastic houses that I've got in my stash that I would love to stitch one day. Okay, so I have a few things to talk about from the last Friday video that I did, and I've taken some screenshots of those things to discuss to make sure that I got them right. The first one is a proper shout out this week to Jemima, who is the rocking stitcher. I'd mentioned last week, Jemima leaves me a comment almost every week on my videos, and I saw that she had a YouTube channel. I think I clicked through her avatar. Is that what it's still called, or am I hopelessly out of date by calling it that? I don't know. Anyways, I went over and I saw that she had recorded some floss tube videos, and I had said that I meant to go and watch her. Well, let me tell you what happened. I found out on holiday that Call the Midwife was going to be removed from Netflix on March 31st. And I still had 2.5 seasons to watch of what was on Netflix. So I kind of stopped watching FlossTube for about a week and a half while I sort of tried to plow through those episodes that were left on Call the Midwife. Now, I know Netflix wasn't up to date. I think there's 1 or 2 more seasons that have since come out. So Netflix has up until season 5. I am now halfway through season 5. I think I'm a little further than halfway. And I just love that show so much. I cry. Every single episode I cry. I love that show. So I've been watching that. And so that's why I didn't get to head over to Jemima's channel and watch her floss tube after I said I was going to. So then last Friday, after I said, I know she has a YouTube channel, I've been meaning to go and watch her. So I finally made the time. I stopped watching Call the Midwife. I went over and clicked on Jemima's video, and I just had the most wonderful visit. Jemima is also from the Netherlands, so it's a very familiar, friendly voice to listen to. Those of you who watch Ingeborg and Mika and all of our Netherlands, our stitchers from the Netherlands, it's a familiar and friendly voice in your ear, and Jemima, I really enjoyed my visit with you. Your whips, Jemima has a lot of full coverage pieces, and I am not usually a full coverage stitcher. So it's always really interesting to me to look at the progress of a stitcher who chooses, different projects than what I usually work on. And, some beautiful floral designs that she's working on that I found very inspiring. And also her knitting and her crochet, and hearing a little bit about her life and her struggles with her conifer trees on her property. She's not a fan. So I thought that was quite funny, and it was just a lovely visit. So if you're looking for a new friend to visit this weekend, I don't think you can go wrong. Go and visit the Rocking Stitcher, and I think you'll also enjoy your visit. So thanks, Jemima. That was fun. All right. So that was a proper shout out this week. Well deserved. Okay, now let me get my photographs of the other things that I had to talk about. So first up was the question of ORTs. We briefly discussed ORTs. Somebody had wanted to know what the acronym stood for, and I knew it wasn't really an acronym, but I hadn't taken the time myself to look it up in the dictionary and find that definition. So fortunately, we had a whole pile of people add comments onto that video about ORTs, and it was actually really, really interesting. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, there's two ways we can go here. The actual word ORT is an actual word, and it refers to leftover bits of food, little bits of scraps of food from, on your plate after your meal is completed. A small scrap or leaving of food after a meal is completed. So that is the actual textbook definition of the word ORT. And then it's sort of, morphed into, for stitchers, it's a little leftover bit of thread. And people have given, words to stand for the letters in the word ORT. So old ratty thread or old random thread. So there you go. I thought that was kind of interesting. Amazing what happens when you don't bother to take the time to look it up for yourself, and people will just fill in that answer for you. So I really wasn't trying to be lazy to not look it up for myself. I do appreciate everyone who took the time to write in about that. All right. Oh, this is such a pretty color. Is there anything better than building a house? And this color is so pretty. It's sunny and happy. Funny story about this design. When I first started working on this particular house block, you can see these berries down here. Well, when I was first stitching this was last summer at the cottage. I had just finished this block, and I immediately went over and started this block over here, and I misread the color code on the pattern for these little berries, and I didn't bother looking at the picture that was on the front. I assumed those were sheep. I thought these were little sheep, and I thought this was the shepherdess, and so I stitched these in it was a very similar color to the flowers that are in this field here. And so when I put the green in and they kind of disappeared, I thought, those don't look right. What's wrong? And then I looked at the front of the pattern and I saw, oh, those aren't sheep. Those are supposed to be giant strawberries. So anyway, I had to rip them out and restitch them. So a little bit of it's funny, the memories that you build into your stitching, right? I mean, I certainly can't remember anything else I did a year ago, but boy, I can remember that I stitched those as sheep instead of strawberries. It's ridiculous, but quite funny. All right, next up, we had a question from Fiber Fancy. Fiber Fancy asks, I know that you prefer 40 count fabric and I've been using 36 count. I'm curious whether you use magnification and if so, what type? My eyes have a tough time with 40 count. Okay, so I'm going to combine this one with another question from Cross Stitcher 2, who left me the following. When you stitch on 40 count or 36 count, do you have to use a hoop or a frame? I tried a new pattern using 40 count fabric and stitching in hand, but I couldn't see the threads, so I gave it up. Any advice? So I think those two questions, clearly go hand in hand. Magnification and stretcher bars, hoops, frames, etc. Every stitcher's experience is different because we all have different physical capabilities, preferences, so on and so forth. So I can make suggestions that work for me, but because my eyes work differently, and I've discussed this before, in a nutshell, no, I don't use magnification because I don't need it. I have the opposite problem. I am very, very nearsighted. The sun, you know what? The sun is coming through. I have a skylight over my head and the sun has hit a really bad angle. So I'm going to have to watch my magnifier. Speaking of last week's conversation on magnifiers and sunlight, but also it's hitting the frame of my glasses. So I may have to move my stitching here in a minute if I can't see properly, but we'll carry on for a minute and maybe the sun will move in a couple of minutes. Well, the sun will move in a couple of minutes. I think that's a given, right? So I am very nearsighted. So when I stitch a high count fabric, I tend to take my glasses off and hold the fabric closer to my face. And in doing so, I can actually see it quite clearly. But I have many friends who have the opposite effect. As they age, they need to hold things further away, or they need to use various methods and forms of magnification. So if you're attempting to stitch on 36 count or 40 count, it is certainly doable. I have many friends who, stitch well into their later years on the higher count fabrics. They just, there's a couple of things that we all have in common. We all use extra lighting. So you want to make sure that your lighting is as good as you can possibly get it. So either a desk lamp that, is an Ott light, or it doesn't have to be the Ott brand. There are many, many off brands that you can get at Michael's that, or I saw some at Costco last week. Now this was the Costco here in London, Ontario. I don't know if all of the Costcos have these, but they were selling Ott lights at Costco, the desk version. And I am kicking myself now that I didn't pick one up, because the one that I use on my bed, I stitch in bed, by the way, and I have one that sits on the back of my headboard, and when I open it up, it's right over my shoulder, and I find that is the best place for me to put my light, so it shines over my shoulder, and then I can see really, really well. So lighting is pretty critical, having really excellent lighting, the best you can possibly get, sitting in a nice bright spot. And then magnification. There are a few different things you can use. There are some stand lights that have magnifiers in the middle. There are clip-on magnifiers that you can get that you can clip right to your frame and hold it right over your work so that you can see directly what's underneath it. Many of my friends use a product called Mag Eyes, MAG-EYES. I have zero time to edit this video today, so if you If you caught that, make sure you write it down if you're interested in it. Mag Eyes. And I think you can get them on Amazon. Pretty sure. There are 2 or 3, I believe, levels of magnification that you can buy. So again, I do not use this product, so I'm not a great guide as to tell you exactly which ones to buy, but I also think it would depend on your eyes as to which ones you need. So the magnification you need would be different from the magnification perhaps that your neighbor would need, which I think makes sense. So good lighting, magnification if you need it. If, there's no harm in trying it, might just help you out. Using a hoop or a frame, lots of people who stitch on smaller count fabrics stitch in hand. So I wouldn't say that stitching in hand is the problem. I stitch using a frame or a hoop or scroll rods because I love it. That's how I prefer to stitch. But if you prefer to stitch in hand, before I went out and bought rods and hoops and frames and stuff, I would try upping your lighting and your magnification. Try that first. And then if that doesn't help and you haven't given up yet, well, then, try. Hoops are very inexpensive, and you can purchase one for just a couple of dollars, one of those wooden ones, and you could try that and see if you like it. And you know what? Stitching on 40 count fabric, 36 count, it's not for everybody. You may decide that you hate it anyways, and life's too short to stitch on what you hate. So if you are not enjoying it, spend your time stitching on what you love and just enjoy it. There. Oh, I've got a little bit of a loose thread here. So let's see if we can fix that. But you know what? If you're bound and determined that you're going to figure it out and you want to stitch on those higher count fabrics, there's usually a way to make it a little more enjoyable. So I hope that answered your question. Hope that helped. And thanks for leaving me such nice comments and questions. Okay, good. Next up. As usual, we have Mr. Kyle. Mr. Kyle leaves me a comment and a question on every video, and I love it. So today's question is a good one. He says, when you're stitching or sewing, do you usually have anything on in the background, such as the TV, music, podcasts, audiobooks, etc.? If so, what do you have on in the background most frequently? Outside of FlossTube, I usually have some true crime podcasts playing to keep me company. So Kyle, I love this question, and I love discussing this question with other stitchers because I think it always gives us more ideas about things that we can enjoy while we're stitching, because I don't think I'm in the minority here when I say I have a lot of difficulty sitting and watching television and not crafting at the same time. I like to be using my hands. I don't like to just be sitting there. So I craft all the time, but my favorite things to do differ depending on what I'm doing. When I am sewing, so when I'm working, when I'm making bags, I invested in a pair of wireless headphones. And those were really a game changer for me because before that I'd been using the little plug-in jack headphones that were on my phone, and I would listen to an audiobook that way, or music or something like that. But the cord would always get in the way, and so I must have asked my husband two birthdays, 2 Christmases, this is what I really want. I really want some wireless headphones. And I think he thought he knew better than me and he didn't think I would use them all that much or something like that, because we always sometimes make assumptions. If we wouldn't use something all that much, we think, oh, the other person probably would never use them. And so finally, I think I wore him down, and he finally got me a pair for Christmas 2017. Yeah. Or no, it was later than that. So I've had them for about a year, and I love them. So when I'm sewing, you can usually find me with my wireless headphones on, and my family are hilarious. I have to tell them, I have to message them and say, I've got my headphones on. So if you come home, please text me, because they will scare the heck out of me, because they are actually noise canceling headphones and I can't hear anything else when I'm working. I always lock the door. I lock the door when I'm home working because I can't hear anything except what I'm listening to. So I lock the door and get to work, and I say, please text me if you're coming home, because I won't hear you unlocking the door. And then I listen to audiobooks. I listen to music. I love listening to music when I sew. Audiobooks are wonderful. And lately I've been watching Call the Midwife while I sew, but only because I've got headphones on. I don't like to watch a lot of television or movies and things when I'm sewing, because it's a little bit too distracting, and I find that I don't get quite enough work done. You know what? I've changed my mind about this. I didn't used to watch FlossTube while I was sewing, because I found that I felt a little bit envious that everybody was stitching except me. Does that make sense? And it would really make me want to go and stitch instead of sewing. But I found that I wasn't able to watch enough FlossTube if I didn't watch it while I sewed. And so I just tried to think about it a little bit differently, and instead just view it as a visit with a friend talking about our favorite hobby. And I get a lot of work done that way. So it's like visiting with a friend while I work. So I love watching FlossTube while I sew. When I stitch, I like to watch FlossTube as well, but that's another chance. That's usually my chance to catch up on television shows and movies and things like that. But probably audiobooks are my absolute favorite. Audiobooks and podcasts. Like you, Kyle, I am also a fan of the True Crime podcast. Always good. So thanks for the question. There we go. That's one thread done. My house is growing. Oopsie. Sometimes these don't come apart as easily as you think they're going to. One. You always want to make sure that variegated or hand-dyed flosses, you want to make sure that they're going the same direction when you pull them apart, because if they're variegated, you want your colors to match up on both strands. So you have to, when you take one out and put it down, you have to remember which orientation it was when you pull the second one out, to make sure that they match. There we go. Otherwise, you might lose some of that subtle shading that's going to happen. There. Ready to go. Oops. Okay, so I don't think there was much more actually after the message that Kyle sent me. There was one question from Jenny Liz, and this one I said to Jenny, I don't really know the answer to this myself. So this is a question that I'm going to read out loud, and I'm hoping that we can get some conversation going in the comment box below for next week last week when I was stitching, I was using the Picture This Plus fabric, and it's an even weave, and I find it quite stretchy when I pull my scroll rods apart when I'm stretching my fabric, and I find that it can distort the size of the, it opens up the holes, right? And because I'm not stretching it this way, it can elongate my stitches. So I'm trying to be careful not to overly stretch it when I stitch, because I don't want it to stay that way. I'd like it to be a circle and not an oval when I'm done. So Jenny's question was, after hearing you talk about overstretching fabric, I was wondering if you knew whether linen stretches more in one direction or the other. The reason I ask is that I've noticed on my project it seems the count is uneven, but I'm sure it's not supposed to be. I do release the tension after each stitching session. I was thinking that perhaps the orientation of the fabric on scroll rods might have an impact on the warp or weft potential to stretch. It's linen I'm working with that's in question. So, is there a tendency for it to stretch more one way or the other? Does anyone know the answer to that question? It's a good question. So I'm really hoping that someone who's listening is a lot more knowledgeable on this than I am, and can maybe offer us some information in the comments below. That would be great. Oh, this is so pretty. And I'm in the right spot. Thank heavens. One more. There. Okay. I think that was it. Yep, that was it from last week's video. So thank you for all of the comments and questions, and really just making it a fun place to hang out. I love reading them. I read them as they come in, and then I read them again right before I record the next video. And that's when I've been taking the time to go in and hit the like button and make sure that I really try to address everything that comes in. So if by chance I have ever missed anything that you've sent to me, please feel free to send it again. All right. Yeah. I think going over the door frame. Here we go. So John and I were at breakfast this morning, and we do this on Friday mornings. We take an hour out of our schedules on Friday mornings and go and have breakfast together. There's a restaurant down the street. It's inexpensive, and we just sit and chat, and we were discussing upcoming events, weekends, weekend plans, and other than this weekend, there is something going on every single weekend until the beginning of June. Can you believe that? The beginning of June. So, I mean, and no complaints. I mean, heavens above, they are fun things, wonderful things, just family and, people visiting, or, John is taking Sarah up to visit a university next weekend, so that she can see what it's like. It was her other choice for potential places to go for school. So they're going to go and do that next weekend. We generally tend to, I won't be going with them because, well, first of all, I have a very senior dog, and I can't leave her with a house sitter all the time. So I'll be staying here, and it's going to be a daughter-dad trip. So that's what's going on next weekend, and I think they're both looking forward to that. But you know, every weekend has something planned from now until June, and then you know what happens at the end of June? We go back to the cottage. So it is going to be time to record off the grid needle arts videos at the cottage before we know it. And if you weren't watching last summer, you might not know we had quite an exciting summer last year. We had bears. There were nearby forest fires. There was a drought. There was was quite a summer. So I only can wonder at what will happen this summer. But I'm looking forward to getting back up there. I'll tell you that. John will be heading up the beginning of May. That's the plan, anyways. The beginning of May, he and his father will be going up to open up the cottages the first weekend in May. Fingers crossed. It looks like the ice is. Sorry, I should explain that. We are out on a little island out on Georgian Bay, up here in Ontario, and you have to be sure that there is no ice left when you boat over, obviously. So the ice has to be completely gone. It's a fairly, you know, we're always very, very, very cautious in the spring. The kids do not go. I mean, Sarah's old enough now, but Nicholas is still a little bit young to head over to help open the cottage because the water is frigid. This time of year, that time of year, early spring is probably the most dangerous time for water accidents, because if you fall in, it is the water is extremely cold. Your chances of survival after any time in the water are quite low. So safety has to be a priority, and I have to be careful. I know, what am I doing, right? I've got a little slub here. So actually, I want you to completely ignore what I just did. Don't ever copy what I just did. Because I had my scissors a little too close to my fabric. And that is a recipe for snipping a hole in your fabric. So let's just pretend I didn't actually just do that on camera. Yeah, don't do what I do. Anywho, I got so distracted and so excited telling you about the cottage, I didn't realize that maybe I was possibly setting a very, very, very bad example. So anyway, so usually linen has a little bit of, it can have slubs or, you know, extra little bits, and really you should never cut them off, because it's the potential that is a thread that you're cutting, and then you're going to end up with a hole. However, I usually know the difference between a slub that's okay and not. And so I haven't been caught yet, but I've also been lucky. So please don't copy what I just did. Whew. Good job, Caroline. Anyway, so yeah, the cottage. I can't wait. Can't wait. So it's going to be a busy time. Lots of sewing to do for me this weekend. I normally do work on the weekend usually because I like what I do. But I usually try to also make sure I have time for the family. This weekend, I'm a little bit behind this week. Still catching up from being away on vacation and just, you know, some personal stuff this week. I'm just a little bit behind. So time to catch up this weekend will be nice. I hope to have some nice time with the family and lots of crafting. I hope you have lots of time for crafting as well. You can join us over on the Facebook group, Friday Off the Grid, and see everyone's phenomenal stitching. I mean, really. I've been enabled by a few projects over there lately that I have gone onto my wish list. And I'm really glad to be working on something different today, because I know myself, when I start to feel that I'm getting a little bit bored, a little bit, tired of what I'm working on, that's when my brain starts to wander towards new starts and new stash and all of that good stuff. So choosing a different project today was actually a really good way to sort of snap me out of that and be satisfied with what I already have and what I'm already working on. So there you have it. Let's just do these last 2 stitches to take me up this little slope here. My little shepherdess here doesn't have a head yet, so hopefully I can maybe put a few more stitches in this design this weekend and give her a head. So I will see you all on Sunday. If you care to join me on Sunday for high tea, where we're going to celebrate something special in your stitching. Everybody is different. Some people celebrate a new start from stash, something special that you've been saving, hanging on to, and you're ready to, dust it off and give it some love. Or maybe you're like me and you're trying to concentrate on whittling down the whip pile. I will be switching out my March projects for 3 new ones for April. I will still be keeping tiramisu in the mix because I plan on attempting to finish the stitching on that piece to enter in Ginger Gerald's large piece completion competition. We'll see. I've been enjoying watching the different floss tubers who are also participating in Gerald's competition. I think the projects that he's going to end up with as entries for this competition are going to be phenomenal. I can't wait to see him put that video together with everybody's pieces at the end. I think that's really going to be a special video and really, really, really showcase the amazing talent and work that this community is capable of. We're pretty awesome, I think. All right, so let's see. It is now, okay, it's 3:45. So if I'm quick enough, I can get this video up and loaded by 6 o'clock start time for Friday Off the Grid. And I will be working on probably some canvas work tonight. Probably do a little bit of canvas work while we visit with my father-in-law downstairs. And then later tonight, I'll probably switch back over to tiramisu for a few hours. Get a few more motifs maybe completed tonight in tiramisu. So I look forward to seeing you on the Facebook group. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you on Sunday for high tea. Happy stitching.